Welcome to the Auctioneer Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Barker, a second-generation auctioneer with over 30 years in the business. This show dives into real conversations with the people who make the auction world what it is, the stories, the lessons, and the craft behind calling bids today. Joining me today is my co-host, Casey Daniel. How you doing, Casey?
Fantastic, Dustin. Excited to be here with our guests today. We have Justin Kennedy, the owner and operator of the Oklahoma Auction School, and we're really excited to be talking with him today.
The Auctioneer Podcast is fueled by RocketBid, the next generation auction platform built for pros who actually sell. Run live, online, or influencer-style auctions, manage your inventory and consigners, and keep your brand front and center. No middlemen, no hidden fees, just power, control, and speed. RocketBid.io. Everything you need to run your auction business your way. Technology built by auctioneers for auctioneers. Welcome, Justin. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Well, fantastic. Justin, welcome to the Auctioneer Podcast. We're really excited to have you on today and get your take on the industry and your experiences. First of all, Justin, can you give us a little bit of information about yourself and maybe how you came across the auction business?
Yeah, I tell everybody I backed into the auction business in the weirdest way that a human possibly could do that. I started as an ag teacher, FFA advisor in the state of Oklahoma, and that was kind of my passion. My ag teacher had made a difference in my life, and I wanted to make a difference in others. And so I went to college at Oklahoma State to become an ag teacher. After that, I got out of school and taught for a couple of years, and then changed schools and moved back home, worked on my master's and became a school superintendent. I spent a few years doing that, and I moved on to something that I was very passionate about, and that's career and technical education, adult education, and true career development. And we, in that, we had programs where we were able to start short-term programs, anything that could make, anything that you could do to build a class and get students to enroll in and make it pay for itself, we could do that. So I had a friend that had gone to auction school. He had gone to Worldwide College of Auctioneering, and he came back and he was looking to get out of the oil field, and he said, I need something to do. I said, well, we pay people 25, 30, 35 bucks an hour to teach classes, like anything you can do. And he had some other talents. And I said, well, if you can make classes, we'll use you. And he said, well, I don't know if we can start an auction school. He said, there's a lot to that. And I said, there can't be that much to it. I've never been an auctioneer. And I said, well, I'm the guy that believes that if you give me 5 minutes, I'm going to figure out how we're going to get this plane up and off the ground. Like, get off the tracks, baby, because the train's coming. And I started looking into it. I started gathering curriculum, looking at other places, researching what everyone had done, looking at the auction schools in the country, and just so happened one of our employees was really, really good friends with a world champion auctioneer who we called and I talked to for a little bit, and he gave me a bunch of advice. And I said, well, I'm going to go to, I didn't even know that they had auction conventions, right? Like, so I was going to go to my state, and I live really close to Arkansas. So I was like, I'll go to Arkansas and Oklahoma convention this year. This was in February of 2020. And so we know what happens like a month later, right? And so I go to Arkansas and Oklahoma conventions, and I start telling everybody, like, hey, I'm starting an auction school in Oklahoma. And everybody's like, who is this cat? Like, who just showed up here out of the blue? Like, he doesn't even know how to speak good English, much less how to be an auctioneer. And I didn't know a thing other than I had read the books and I had listened to all the tapes, and I had probably studied more than any auctioneer there was up until this point. That was February of 2020. In March of 2020, the world shut down. Thank the good Lord above, because I would have not been ready for that summer class that I was going to host in June of 2020 had that not have happened. So COVID might not have been good to everybody, but it was good to me.
In a roundabout way.
In a roundabout way. As far as auction school is concerned, it was good to us. And so we took that year. I kept researching, I kept building, I kept digging, I kept practicing and doing my thing to where I could be respected in the industry. I showed back up in February of 2021 and said, here I am again, and I'm starting an auction school. And they're like, well, this guy He's a sticker. He's been here twice now. So
Yeah, made it through the
I taught some
pandemic.
people in. Yeah, I lived through the pandemic and was there to tell about it, and a lot of auctioneers didn't. It was a rough time for them. And 2021 was a rough time, and especially people in the benefit space and a lot of those that were really dependent upon indoor activities. It was just a hard time, and I came in, I think, at a really good time in the industry. It was like a restart, right? And so
Hmm.
I was able to jump in, and we started a class, and it just became really successful. I had some different views and some different takes that I wanted to add to auction school when we started. One of those things that I said is I want it to be, I see real quick, and in all of my research I've done about this, how relationship driven this business is. And if I do nothing else in my auction school, I want to drive and force the relationships that are going to come out of it. So I wanted instructors that were going to stay. I wanted instructors that were close. I wanted instructors that were going to put my students to work when it was over. That was going to call them and give them opportunities. I wanted to sit down and eat 3 meals a day together the whole time we're in auction school. So I provide every meal that the students eat while we're in auction school. We stay in a dorm type room. We're all together. The instructors, we all get one big house and we all stay in one big room. I'm a believer in relationships, and you're nothing in this industry if you don't have the relationship. My ag sales instructor at Oklahoma State, he always said, people will tell you that life's about who you know. And he said, that's not true. Your life is going to be about who knows you. And I think that that's something that stuck with me, and it's helped me make it in this industry. It's helped me make it in all aspects of life that I've been in. Is life's about who knows you, and so we did that. We've continued to grow and do the auction school, and I don't see other auction schools as a competitor. I send other people to auction schools.
Hmm.
If mine's not the best fit for them, I don't want to drag people from all the way across the country to come to me. I want people to come that are close to me that I can help get started in a business, and I believe that we do that because of relationships. I'm not interested in having classes that are got 40, 50, 60 people in them. I want to do it the right way, and that's how we've been since the start. I'm all about relationships and building it with the right people. I send people to other auction schools all the time and say, you live here, you probably need to go, to the one that's closest to you, the one that makes the most sense. Let me give you a number. Some of my best friends own auction schools. I talk to them all the time, and so that's been a really cool thing, is to see some of those relationships that we've grown in the industry. And then out of that, somewhere along the line in 2023, and this is kind of probably why we're here today. It's what beyond auction school and everything else has kind of built my name in the industry, is that my ties to the FFA world. And so if you don't know what FFA is, it used to stand for Future Farmers of America, but they decided that they were more than sows, cows, and plows, and they were going to get away from this mantra of being nothing but farmers, because there's leadership aspects, there's public speaking. FFA usually drives those people that are driven people, that can speak publicly, that can hone those leadership skills and do really, really specific things. For those that don't know, it's kind of like the more high school, junior high school version of what a 4-H program is, if you're familiar with that. In the traveling in this, I've learned that there are others like Grange
Hmm.
and some different organizations around the country that are very similar. But FFA, they changed their name to the National FFA Organization in 1988, I believe. They were formed in 1928 in Kansas City, Missouri. They had their first convention in the Biltmore Hotel. Downtown Kansas City had since moved to Louisville and now to Indianapolis, where the National FFA Center is. And that organization is the largest youth organization in the world.
Wow. Yeah.
It's just got a million ish members. And so with my ties here in the state of Oklahoma, we had already seen the National FFA and the National Auction Association partner up to form what is called a supervised agricultural experience. Under Scott Schumann's leadership as the president of the NAA, he was a big FFA supporter. He brought on as his advisor while he served as president. He brought in Scott Stump, who is the CEO of National FFA, and they partnered to bring what's called a supervised agriculture experience into that. A supervised agriculture experience means that the ag teacher supervises this student while they have a project, and they work to get their state and American degrees, what used to be called state and American farmer degrees, but they're the highest award that the FFA can bestow. And so that was a really great thing. It paved the way for what we're doing today. I think Scott Schumann, he laid the framework that we were able to do this on a national level. They built that, but we didn't see the SAE bringing in a lot of new people, but it really paved the way. It did great things for people like Cotton Booker who used that. We all know the Bookers, and if you live in the Pacific Northwest or anywhere in the country, obviously the Booker name is one of the biggest in the auction industry. But Cotton went on to get his American degree, to be an American Star finalist, and do a lot of really cool things using the SAE. So through that, in 2023, we said I had been pushing since 2020 to have an FFA auction contest in the state of Oklahoma. I had no intentions of it going to a national level or doing anything like that, but we just proposed it to the state level. And one of the guys that I knew that was a state advisor, worked at the state office. He said, "Let's just do it." He said, "Let's stop asking people about it and let's just do it." I said, "You're speaking my language now, buddy. Like, let's go. Like, I'm
Get off the
the
track.
guy that thinks about stuff after it's done, not before we get started." And so we got started and we kicked off, and we had our first one in Oklahoma, and we had like 44 participants signed up for the first one. We live streamed it, had like 25,000 people watch it in the live stream.
Wow.
And when we left that event that day in Oklahoma City, it was like a moment that we knew that we were standing on something huge. Our phones started ringing off the hook. We went to dinner that night, me and the other members of my board. And we sat around a table, and their phones were buzzing, and my phones was buzzing, and everybody said, "We've got to do this in our state. We've got to get this started. We got to find a way to go." And so for the last 3 years of my life, it's been figuring out how to help start this in other states, how to get them started. We just left a week ago in Denver, Colorado, where we had 80 students signed up, 80 FFA students. We had Paul Seabear there. We had some of the greatest in the industry helping train and teach when we go to those states. That night, the top 4 got to go sell beside John Corey at the National Western Meet and Greet in a big arena. We've created some great opportunities for these kids to stand in spaces and do things that are just incredible. We just raised enough money in Oklahoma at a fall event that we're sending 7 students on scholarship to go to Ringman College. Champion Ringman College has partnered with us and given us discounts and deals to send those students on to Ringman College. We had 11 of these FFA students last year in my auction school class, and then several of them went to other auction schools as well. It's created a great pipeline and created a great opportunity for these students to step into something that's really huge. Our champion 2 years running in Oklahoma, she was a 14-year-old 8th grade girl when she won it the first time. She had never stepped on a stage before, never done any kind of public speaking, but she fell in love with it. Her family had never been in the auction industry. She had never been to an auction. And now this is something that she just says that she loves. And the other night, she got to stand on a stage. She got to help ring and sell items at the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame induction at the National Cowboy Hall of Fame. And so we've created some really great opportunities for students that have been life-changing. So super exciting thing. And that's what we're here to talk about, I think, today, guys, mostly.
Well,
Absolutely.
that's amazing. Yeah. It must be very rewarding to, start up something like that and ushering in the new generation, so to speak. When kids are growing up these days and that sort of thing, doesn't matter where they are. If they're growing up in a program, how many of them think to be an auctioneer, right? And it's very encouraging that there are a bunch of kids that are looking at coming up in the industry and that sort of thing, because hey, we're all getting older, right? We need new blood coming in, and you don't see as much of it coming around these days. What sort of with the kids and that sort of thing, what sort of things do you work on in the schools in this FFA program? Is it like a week long sort of thing? Is it a seminar? Is it how does this work for the FFA students?
So one of the ways that we work this, and typically how we start, is the real contests happen in the spring. So it's called a career development event. What Scott and them set up was a supervised agricultural experience. What we have set up is called a career development event. And so with that, we really have a structure where in the spring time of the year, so when most people are hosting their state auction conventions in January, February, March, we host what's called a preliminary round. So there will be whoever wants to sign up, whatever kids wants to participate, they all come to that, and that's their qualifying round. And then that's hosted at the auction convention. All of the money and proceeds from that usually go to scholarships. We're selling real items for real money to real people, right? Like, and so we throw them in that. They don't sell fake cows and fake toys or anything like that. They're selling real items for real money. So we put them in front of that at an auction convention. We help assign mentorship opportunities. We put them in front of the professionals in the room, the best in the business, right? And so we pick a top 10 out of that, and that top 10 goes on to the state FFA convention, wherever their convention is. And so in Oklahoma, this will be our third year to do it, and we've hosted it in the career show area where all the vendors are. And I would say that every year we've had 1 to 2,000 people coming in to watch our auction finals at that convention. More people than watch the IEC or the IJAC. And they're watching these 10 students compete. They're standing on literally a huge stage in front of a huge crowd, getting to do this. But how we kind of start prior to that, that's kind of the main event deal. That's where they get. So what we've been traveling and doing right now, the reason I've been on the road for the last 2 months nonstop, we go and travel all over the states, and through my auction school, we put on what's called camping contests, an FFA Auctioneering CDE camping contest. And in that, we usually check in at like 8 o'clock, and we'll start the camp at 9 o'clock, and we'll go until like 3 o'clock. In that, you have about 6 hours. We eat a lunch. I order them pizza. I provide their 2 items. They sign up and pay $75 to come. I buy their 2 items, and then at the end, they work all day long on describing those 2 items. They can show up that day, and they've never had a chant before, or they've never worked on anything in the auction industry before. They're just there because they're interested. Their ag teacher didn't know how to get them started. Their parents didn't know how to get them started. Just somebody said, "Hey, I think being an auctioneer would be cool." And so they show up, and we start training them. We break them out into 2 different groups. So we have a beginners group and we have an advanced group. And we try to split them, and we work on it. Sometimes we can divide them before the day starts. Sometimes we let them go through the first rotation, and we divide them into groups, and we let the instructors kind of pick the top half and the bottom half. We just get a feel for the room and how it works, and then we go off of that, how we divide the groups. And then that all day we work. And then at 3 o'clock, we give them a 1 hour break to go get into their official FFA dress. That very comfortable and enjoyable corduroy that always keeps you hot in the summer and cold in the winter. You know, if you've ever wore that corduroy jacket, you know that it's perfect to get you real hot in the summer and real cold in the winters. And they go get in their jackets, and then they come back, and then we have a contest. And if we have a whole bunch of kids like we did in Colorado, where we have 80 students, we run 2 sets of judges, and we'll put 1 set judging the beginners, 1 set judging the advanced, and we just never stop. We just run them through like cattle. While judge set 1 is judging 1, 2 is coming in, and they're finishing, and then 3 is a begin. So we've kind of perfected it to where we can get through 80 kids in an hour and a half. Hour and 25 minutes. And so in a contest, and it just is really cool. It prepares them to go on to the spring. Some of them will decide, hey, I don't want to do that. Like, that was too much. I had to pick up a microphone. I tell all of them that, the number 1 fear in the world is public speaking, and number 2 is dying. So you're already winners, because everybody else in the world would rather be dead than doing what you're doing today. So you are already a winner. You've accomplished more. You're doing something that only 1% or less than 1% of the population in this world can do. And so I try to encourage them and build them up as we go into that. But it's just really been an amazing thing to watch and see these students who are going to grow into something. They're going to do things that me, you, and a lot of old guys in the industry could never do. Right? They're gonna invent things. They're going to design things. They may invent apps or change things through AI, and the things that they know how to operate that our minds don't even really understand. So it's really cool to see them jump in. This has just been the hook in their mouth to get them started. And I try to tell my instructors that, like, don't get out there and start telling them about real estate contracts. Don't start telling them about all of the automobile laws and how they're going to have a dealer's license and they're going to have to, don't start in on the ATF and all the stuff on what it takes to sell a gun or anything, right? Like, just stick to, let's work on a chant. If the cream's going to rise to the top, and if they decide that they're really interested in this business, they're going to invest and they're going to go to auction school and they're going to go to Ringman School. They're going to do all of those things to invest in their education. And that's what we're seeing, is that the cream will rise to the top and the ones that aren't really interested will fall away. But if we start talking real estate contracts on day one, they're all going to run for the hills, right?
That's
And
right. Yeah.
that's the mistake that we make most of the time, is we don't give people the chance to be interested. And if we can't get interested first, then we'll probably never jump in.
I love that, being able to give it kind of an express to the fun part of the auction industry without getting married down in all the laws and all the particulars. That's really phenomenal. And you've really created like an auctioneer career development like around that. I think that's really, really quite cool.
Absolutely. I mean, you were mentioning, so you came from a administrative background and you started developing the auction school and stuff. Did you go to auction school or did you get trained by your people? So how did you get to be an auctioneer, I guess?
Are
What
you an
brought you to that
auctioneer?
point?
You're an auctioneer
Yeah.
now, right? You've done
Yeah.
auctions now? Okay.
Yeah, I do it. I do it quite a bit, but it's just it was something that, I mean, I didn't. I wouldn't get up and do it. I sat there in the first auction school that we did, just observing, because I thought, I mean, I've listened to all these tapes, right? Like I've went and got the worldwide tapes. I had the
Did you have
America's
a
tapes. I
favorite?
had
Did you
all of
have a
these
favorite one
things.
that you liked?
No, no,
Okay,
no.
okay,
I'm
okay,
I'm
okay,
not
okay,
gonna
okay.
pick and
Sorry, I
choose on there.
apologize.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I hate to
I
make anybody
apologize.
mad.
Right, right,
But
right. I better be careful.
no, no, I'm just kidding. I had listened to all of this, and I thought, how many? Like I was looking around, going, how many times can somebody say "rubber baby buggy bumper" before you become an auctioneer? Like, well, this is the biggest joke I've ever
Magically
heard.
happens.
So me and the girl that was kind of my what we call the coordinator, she was kind of over my short term training stuff that we were doing, and so we had worked to put this on, and so she was the first one sitting there with me, and we sat in there through the first few days of auction school, and I said, I can remember looking there after like day one, and I was like, this was my saying, and regardless of where you stand politically, I said, this is going to be like Trump University. We're getting sued when we get it, because people are going to leave here. They ain't gonna know nothing, like they're not gonna know anything. And so I can remember we were sitting there on about Tuesday, and I was like, I looked over at her, and I'm like, hey, like they're starting to sound like auctioneers. Like this actually works. And so it just kind of started that way. And so I just kept sticking it out, and kept going. And for a long time, everybody would say, Justin's our favorite non-auctioneer, and so I showed up, and then like I got on the board in Oklahoma, and I got on NAA task force, and I was NAA volunteer of the year this last year. So it's just become something that's a passion and a love for me, but I just kept digging in and studying. I still have not gone to auction school. I'm in the talks with a couple of others to kind of go through theirs and them to come through mine, just for an experience to see the things that I could do better and the things that they could do better. Like where we just kind of have an agreement where we're going to go through it like a student and approach it from a student focus,
Oh,
that we want to make our places better,
that's great.
and do
Like cross
everything that
training.
we do better. So yeah,
Love that.
So, well, basically, you could give yourself an honorary degree when you think about it, right?
yeah.
But okay, so
Well, we got
let's face it, right? But I would say you paid your dues, though, right?
yeah.
So given that, are there any, say, people that you've drawn from for inspiration? Maybe in the business or on the auctioneer side of it, or what have you, that you've learned some good lessons from, and then you're partaking their wisdom and passing it on to the next generation, so to speak.
Yeah, this is what I say. Like, I wouldn't be here without people that believed in me early on and have stood beside me from the word go. Because, like I said, it was just too weird. I didn't have family in the auction business. I wasn't in the auction business. And like, here I am starting something. And like, even all of these people just believed in me, maybe I can just, I don't know, maybe I have some kind of Woo is one of my top 5 strengths, but I mean, I don't think I'm that good at it, and so I talked some people, early on into believing in me, and some of the people that have stood beside me the most from the beginning. I could name all of my instructors in my classes, but, one of the biggest ones, and she's become one of my best friends in the auction industry, a couple of those. It's Morgan Hobson, who's the NAA president right now. She's taught for me, since the word go. She stood beside me, and it's been an honor and a privilege to stand beside her, and see all that she's accomplished as the youngest president in NAA history. Only the
Wow.
7th woman to ever do that. And so that's been really, really cool. And she travels with me and helps me do all of this FFA stuff as well. She's taught for me at auction school since the word go. Kelly Crissup Fitzpatrick now manages, 11, 12 something state auction associations. She's really been a proponent of mine, believed in me since the beginning, has become a close personal friend as well. Some of those people, and just all of my instructors. Y'all had Philip on here just the other day, Philip Pearsall,
Mhm. Mhm.
several others. Just, I mean, I could name all of them, and I would leave some out. But people like Lance Swigert in Texas, he has given me his auction software. We teach auction software on the final night of auction school. Our students all have to take pictures. They have to upload their stuff into software. They have to be able to run the software, clerk the auction, ring the auction, sell the auction, do the whole nine. And Lance has been gracious enough to come and stand beside me, and he's done that just pro bono since the word go. And like I say that I wouldn't stand where I am today if I hadn't stood on the shoulders of giants. Lance was a
Mhm.
Texas Hall of Fame inductee this last year. And just people like that are just salt of the earth people that have given and given to me and believed in me and said, I'm going to ride with you and I'm going to build with you. And as long as I can do what I do, I'm going to stand beside them too, and promote them every chance that I get, because I wouldn't be standing where I'm standing today, if it wasn't for a lot of those people. And I could name a list of the greats and the giants and the world champions and the people that have poured into me, but I'm just so thankful for those that have been there since the beginning
Mhm.
when they had no reason to believe in me and did it anyway.
Well,
Oh,
one of the
that's
things that
excellent.
was I was going to say, the thing that I think you don't necessarily realize outside of the auction industry is that community within the auction industry of how tight knit it really is. And so I think that's beautiful that you're focused on those relationships and that community, because that's just a beautiful thing that I think is in the auction community, that everybody, I think, is trying to help one another, because I think it is a difficult industry that has a lot of online challenges. And I think that that's the community and the human nature of it and relationships is such an important part. I'm glad you're really focusing on that. That's great.
I say that all the time, is that, like I've been involved in a lot of different worlds, right? I've been in the education space my entire life. I've been in ministry. I've done a lot of things in my life. I tell everybody I just don't like to sleep at night. And so that's why I have so many different things that I've done. But I say this all the time. If something happened at my house tonight with me and my family, there would be more auctioneers sitting at my house in the morning than any other people group and profession in the world.
Wow.
And that's why I think this industry is so attractive and people fall in love with it when you get into it, is because you realize that those relationships matter. And when they tell you they have your back, they have your back 110%. And they're there not only for you but your family, and they're going to be beside you in whatever you do. I think that's why this industry is such an attractive thing. Once you get into it, that's why people get addicted to it, is because it just becomes a huge family. And people say that all the time, but it's really the truth.
Oh, really is true. I mean, from my experiences over the years, from selling, it just didn't matter where I worked or where I did my services, whatever. It became a family because, these people were in it with you. They understood what you were going through, number one, and stuff on a daily basis. And everybody was around to help each other out in most cases, I don't know too many industries that you're going to see that, at all, pretty much. So, what do you see? I guess you have an insight and that sort of thing. Where do you see the industry maybe going in the next, say, 5 year, 10 years, so to speak?
I think with this FFA deal and that being my huge involvement, I get this question all the time, like, what's your goal? What do you think this FFA deal is going to do to the industry? Like, how many auctioneers can the industry hold? Like, is there really a need for this many auctioneers? And I think that's the question of the day. But one of the things that I heard Shane McCarroll say on his tour this last year as he was going through and teaching all across the country, and we were at numerous state conventions together and together all the time. One of the things that he would say in his speech is that only 6% of the world has ever been exposed to the auction industry, and the majority of those are at gala events. So when you think about 6% of our continent has been exposed to the auction industry, that's insane that
Mm-hmm.
94% of the people don't even know what an auction is. And so, from my aspect, what we have seen in the early infant stages of this FFA deal is that communities have started setting up things for kids. We have a young girl who was one of the competitors, and her church, because she made the top 10 in the first year, her church set up an auction for her to do. They had never done it before. It was kind of out of this church's character probably to set up something like that and have that in their sanctuary, right? Like, but they did it because they believed in this girl and they wanted to support her, and they just let her keep all of the money and proceeds for her to go into traveling to go to the convention to
Wow.
participate in the top 10. We've seen it where they have, they've said, well, rather than selling all of these crazy far out there things that we're going to make 10% off of, candy bars and cookie dough and whatever else there is in the world, and we're making like $1 for every $15 that we sell. That's not very good profit margins. But if grandma cooks a pie and she brings it up here and gives it to us and we sell it for $200, like that's $200 profit, right? Like we didn't make $2 off of that
Yeah.
$200. We made
That's great.
$200. And so I think that from that, my perspective is that we're introducing people to the auction industry at a grassroots level in a way that we've really never seen in this country. Yeah, there's always been auctions, there's always been benefit auctions, and people set them up, and for the most part, people go to them that support that event, right? But now we have everybody supports kids, right? Like, and
Uh-huh.
there's never been a concerted effort of, hey, we're gonna introduce the people to the industry at an early age. And I just think about it for me, like, what if someone would have exposed me to the industry when I was 14 instead of when I was
Mm-hmm.
35 or whatever, 33? Like, I mean, how much further along could these kids be with a 10, 15, 20-year jump on the industry and their opportunity? And some of them are creative. But I think that at the same time, we're exposing people to the industry. It's going to change that industry. All of a sudden, if they've sat there and watch these students. There've been people who said, "Hey, I was going to have a garage sale, but if you'll just come over and advertise my stuff and sell it, like whatever you get out of it, just sell my junk out of my garage, right?" And so these kids will gladly take the opportunity to just do that, and
Mm-hmm.
people haven't even cared what it's brought. But if you do that at the same time, we're exposing people to an industry. So when they get
Yeah.
ready to sell their real estate, all of a sudden they're more comfortable selling it at auction now, right? If they get ready to sell the personal property or something out of their house, they're having a moving sale, all of a sudden they're more comfortable selling it at auction rather than listing it traditionally or doing something like we haven't seen. So I really believe that we're changing the auction industry right before our eyes. Like we're introducing people to it, we're making people comfortable with it, and we're bringing in people that are going to have fresh ideas that are going to change it at the most rapid pace that we've ever seen the auction industry change. So it's going to be a jet ride, not a train ride.
Wow. And your auction school, how many times a year are you having classes?
Okay, that's an interesting story because
Oh,
I could I could probably do more than I do, but we really have just stepped back and said, like for right now, let's do what we feel comfortable doing. And so, like 6 years in, we still only do one class a year, and we just say, hey, this is it. If you're coming, this is the time. We do it kind of on a break, and we house it in the midst of a community college where we take their housing, we take their cafeteria, we feed everybody on site, and we do all of those things. But
I love
really,
that.
for us, and especially in Oklahoma, we're in a non-licensing state, right? And
Mm.
so you don't have, like I talked to people like Shane and them when they were still running Nashville. He would say, 85% maybe of my students at Nashville Auction School are traditional real estate agents who are coming here and many of them may never call a bid in their life, but they just want it because they're a traditional real estate agent and they want their auction license and they have to do that in Tennessee. My dynamic is different in Oklahoma because they don't have to have a license, right? Any Joe Blow off the street can come in and be an auctioneer and right, like all of the other states can come into Oklahoma and do it, but Oklahoma can't go out to all these other states and do it unless you've gone through the licensing process in their state specifically, because we have no reciprocity. So it's kind of an interesting aspect
Are
when
you
you have that licensing thing. And so people that come to our auction school typically that are from our state, they're here because they want to be here, and that's what I've really focused on.
are you pro licensing or against it? Do you have any stance on licensing, or is that another podcast?
Yeah, we could go into that for days, couldn't we? I think it has its pros and cons. I think the biggest benefit, like for us in Oklahoma, like if we were a licensing state, the biggest benefit for it for us would be reciprocity, right?
Reciprocity.
Because
Yeah.
Texas can come to us, but we can't go to Texas.
Yeah, that
So
seems
it
unfair.
kills us in that aspect of having the reciprocity. But I think that what you see in most states is they have a licensing law, but they have no enforcement,
Correct.
right? So what good does it do to have a law that has no enforcement, right? It'd be like having a speed limit up and no highway patrols on the road, right? Like
Well,
people are going to
I
drive
think
as
they make
fast as they
money
want
off
to.
the licensings, don't they? Doesn't the state make some money off of the licensing? I
Yeah,
think that works out
yeah,
well
and
for them.
typically that's where it kind of goes to, and it kind of goes to a recovery fund, and they do some certain things, and but you've seen a lot of even the states that are big on licensing for everything, like California and New York, and even they've kind of moved away from licenses just because it's such a hard world to regulate, right? Like
Oh,
I think that like what police officer, what group do you send out to regulate this when you have it and you have all of these stipulations, right? Like everything that's written into the law and was great ideas and I think should be followed, right? Like I agree probably with every licensing law that there is, but all it's doing is keeping the good people good in most states, right? Like it doesn't do anything to keep the bad ones out, which is what it was designed to do, because typically there's no enforcement in it. So like when we
Typically,
talk about
the
licensing.
bad ones will find a way around all that sort
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah, and so, like, that's what we see, and in Oklahoma, since we don't have a licensing board, we get all the complaints from the bad apples at the Auctioneers Association, so I'm vice president this year, more than likely, I'll be president of our association next year, like, and a lot of times we'll field those calls of, like, little Johnny down here, he went out and did this, and he took my money, or he talked bad to like we get all of those complaints, and typically we hear those things, and it's like we're going to tell you the same thing that they're probably going to tell you at a licensing board in a licensing state. It's like it's a civil matter, right? At the
That's
end of the
right.
day, something happens, and it's between a buyer and a seller, or the seller and the auctioneer, or whatever it is. It becomes a civil matter, and so that's what it's going to be at the end of the day, regardless.
That's right. So advice for new and inspiring auctioneers. So what would you say is your number one piece of advice for someone thinking about becoming an auctioneer? So you've brought these students through and you've gotten to the point where, hey, I'm really interested. They go to auction school. What is that number one piece of advice you'd give to that student, I think, aspiring to be an auctioneer?
Don't quit.
Uh,
Just keep showing up, right? Like if
Hmm.
you've got to show up and work for free, keep another job. Like don't go out and quit your job tomorrow. I mean, that's what we always tell them in auction school. Don't go out and turn your resignation in whatever job you've got today, right? Because you're not going to make $1 million in the auction industry tomorrow, right? Like
Mm-mm.
it's just not going to happen. It's going to be a slow process for you to get in, and you're going to have to find a niche that you fit in, that you fit really well. Right? You're going to have to do something that nobody else is doing. So you better get ready to be creative, and you better be ready to work long, hard hours for a really long time if you ever want to be anything in this industry. But I think that's the thing for me and what I've seen is never stop showing up, never stop building relationships. I'm getting ready to fly to Las Vegas to be at BAS and be at Designation Academy. I'll be at CAI again this year. Uh, I'll be at conference and show. I'll be at numerous state conventions, putting on these FFA things. My thing is, people say, I don't know if I can afford to go. It's really expensive. I tell everybody I can't afford not to go, because every time I show up at an event, it makes me more money. Like every
Hmm.
time I take 3 days off to go to one of those things, I mean, I went to CAI my first year. and it would have paid for me to go to 15 years of CAI. Right, like I mean,
Wow.
it just the relationships that you build in it start to pay off so much that people use you, people call you, people give you things, they send you things, and it's like so. I couldn't be more of a proponent for just showing up,
Dustin, do you have
paying
a
your dues, and
national?
making
Okay.
sure that you're at everything
I
that
was.
you
Do you
can
have
be
a?
at, where the best auctioneers in the world are gathered, because it's going to benefit you from that point on in your life.
So, so basically, go ahead, Gacy. Yeah. No. So there used to be an association back, well, I remember this kid because my father was part of the Canadian Auctioneers Association. And the Canadian Auctioneers Association, it was much like the National Auctioneers Association and featured Canadian auctioneers. They held their own competitions, which was great, and that sort of thing. And we'd have our Canadian champion, and then we'd have our world champion. Sometimes some U.S. auctioneers would come in as well, and that sort of thing. I remember my father actually won the competitions, that sort of thing. Actually, he did well in U.S. competing, but being a Canadian, it's hard to place number one in the U.S., I guess you could say. But unfortunately, I would say probably I'm going to say 10 or 15 years ago, just out of interest, the Auctioneer Association Canada just decided to close up shop, I guess. So we don't have any association. I know like some provinces do, like the Ontario has the Ontario Auctioneers Association. Pretty sure Alberta has one, and there's a couple others. But where I am on the East Coast, like there's nothing east of Ontario. So, not much in the way of associations, unfortunately, because I think it would help with more awareness in the auction industry and stuff. And one of my sort of things I've noticed, I've never actually myself wanted to become part of the National Auctioneers Association. Not that I don't believe it. I think it is a very solid organization, but I find just there's no outreach to Canada and there's no features on Canada to want to be part of that association. I guess you can say now, potentially, yeah. I mean, that wasn't, I've been in the trenches for the last 30 years. So, that hasn't been something that's been on top of my mind, but I do think that's a great idea. I think, expanding the borders to Canada would be very beneficial. I mean, hey, we're neighbors, we share a lot of things. There's a lot of Canadian auctioneers that come down and sell in the US, and there's US auctioneers that come up and sell in Canada. It's a very intertwined industry. It's just and like I will be at the show conference and show this year. It'll be my first one ever. I think that's great. I think that'll be fun. And to be a
That's
part of
awesome.
it and that sort of thing.
Well, we did host the benefit auction summit in Canada this year, so
That's
it
right.
was.
Yeah, that is right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep,
But
because Frances was kind of the chair of that this year, and so, she's done a great job at competing in the women's division.
mhm.
She's been the bridesmaid the last couple of years, and I keep thinking it's her year to win it, and I think that she's definitely about to make a mark for Canada and be one of the ones at the
Well,
top
yeah,
here.
I hope so. I mean, I'm definitely
Yeah.
pulling for her. I mean, um, and that's just been my opinion of the years. I'm not saying that the National Auctioneer Association isn't reaching out and that sort of thing. I just think that there definitely is a place for a Canadian foothold,
Yes.
you know, and there is room for, especially now because, hey, you have a lot of trustworthy and good auction companies across the country that are operating, but just like everywhere else, there's your bad actors and everything else that, it does help to be a community, especially, and nothing against a company that starts up and wants to be an auction company. It's a method of selling, right? But for us live auctioneers as well, it's somewhere where we could get together and talk shop and that sort of thing. So definitely well needed in Canada for sure.
Hmm.
So yeah, so given on, what was the first item you ever sold, Justin, by auction?
Oh man, I don't. I don't know that I even remember what that would be. It's an interesting question there. Boy, I don't know. I couldn't even begin to think back and figure that one out.
What do you have a certain category that you like that maybe you like to sell more than another category, let's say?
Yeah, I love kind of living in the benefit world, because I do a lot of that and like trips and travel, and so like that's kind of become kind of the passion is like working for people, helping raise funds. I love to go to auctions and do things, but I don't really enjoy getting out and selling. I have some of my friends here in a local town. I help set up sound a lot because I have tons of sound because of auction school and doing those things. So I'll go set up sound for them at auctions, and they're like, "Hey, come sell this," and I'm like, you sell that. I'll just take you with me when I go sell these other things, like and go do benefits. Like
Mm-hmm.
you sell the chickens and pots and pans and whatever else, and I love to be high energy. I love that benefit space, and so it's just something that I feel probably more motivated to do for sure.
So before an auction, are you coffee before the sale? Yes or no?
I'm not a big coffee fan. Anyways, I sometimes drink when it's really cold mornings, like it is right now here. I'll drink a cup in the morning, but no, I don't drink it right before the sale. But I am a big caffeine guy. I mean, even when I have water, I like that Pure Kick energy and my water, or I drink a lot of soda as well. So,
Awesome. So if there was a dream auction that you could call, what would it be?
I mean, I don't know. I think for most people it would be um, Barrett Jackson, but for me, it doesn't just, like that's obviously awesome to see those guys that do that and that are those absolute fire breathers to watch them
Mm-hmm.
like jump out and do those things. But for me, it's probably just any kind of benefit that's helping organization and kids. Like that's where my heart is. That's where my passion is. It's an education. It's helping others. And so anytime that I get to do that, last Saturday night, I got to go work a 400 person auction that was raising money for kids livestock projects, and we had the best time in the world. Like we sold necklaces for $3,200 and did just sold buffalo heads that were European mounts, and the crazy things, and sold welded swings and this and that, and that's a great night for me because I know what I'm helping matters to me. And that's something that's important. I think that when you believe in the cause and the mission, then it really changes things. I went to Indianapolis a couple weeks ago and got to help sell and sell some trips. They brought me up there for that reason, and we bid called a Fund a Need, and it was for an organization that helps with special needs, helps place special needs students beyond childhood and into adulthood, into jobs and positions that they can do. It helps navigate relationships that put those people to work. And I have a son who's 8 years old and still nonverbal and autistic. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's a passion of mine. It's a love of mine, something that I care deeply about. And so for me, it's all about that, following your heart. And I think in this industry, when you stay in your lane and you believe in something, and you say, "This is what I'm going to do," you you're going to be successful in it. Just stick with the things that you believe in and the things that you love, and you're going to do very well.
Yeah, I often said to KC and other people that my favorite auction event that I do every year, one of my favorites, but I would say this is my favorite one that I do here in Nova Scotia, is it's a huge gala for Special Olympics. And what we do is they have a giant gala. They have top-notch items, probably 2,000 people in the room, but they're very appreciative, and I'm very happy that I can help for that because it definitely sets a lot of special needs athletes to go compete, wherever they're going and that sort of thing. So very rewarding. That's for sure.
Um,
And that's a one great thing for being an auctioneer is being able to help these charities that can make a difference in somebody's life. Right. That's something that really goes a long way. That's for
yep.
sure. Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
One of the things that I think is amazing by being the auctioneer at those events, you really get to see how beautiful your community is because you're getting to see them give and how much that people do want to help out. And a lot of times people don't think about that, but I think as the auctioneer, you get to see the community and all those bidders who do want to help. And so it really warms your heart just to see a community that comes together around that. So that's, again, one of my favorite auctions as well.
Perfect. So
Yep.
a couple quick questions is in your school or maybe the FFA or what have you, have you ever had a student who absolutely surprised you? So not expected, like something that just out of left field and you're like, wow.
Probably that 14-year-old girl that he was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that a lot, and that was probably, the biggest shocker to everybody was when she won it, because we had a couple of kids coming out of the preliminary rounds in that first year in the FFA world that were competing and were coming out of that they had been so a couple of them had been to auction school already. We had one kid that had been selling cows at a market for 2 years. Like these kids
Wow.
could, like, wow, like they're good. Like one of those kids is going to win it, right? At the end, we don't bring every person that judged the contest is a world champion, and we bring in a mixture of men and women, and then we bring in either IAC champions, world livestock champions, and world automobile champions, and an IJAC champion. We try to spread that out where it's one of each, and the judging panel is just top notch. And at the end of the day, when those cards are marked, and this 14-year-old girl that had never done anything in her life wins the contest, you're like, wow. And then she
Wow.
comes back a year later, and all of these boys and everybody else that had been gunning for it, and she just does it again. It's because in the FFA world, in the auction world, typically you win the contest one time, you can't win it again.
Hmm.
But in the FFA world, in our state, like you win it until you go to the national level and compete. And since there's no national contest yet for this, but we hope that in the next couple of years, we have a national FFA event that's hosted in Indianapolis during the midst of their convention, and we expose 100,000 people to the auction industry that get to see it on that stage in the career show area on the big stage. If not, we hope that we're hosting a national FFA champion contest at the IJAC at Conference and Show. Right now, all of those kids are coming to Conference and Show, and the states are
Hmm.
paying for them to do that. But that's been the big thing is, yeah, there have been several of them. Sometimes when those kids walk up there, you're just like, good Lord, like, how in the world, like, and it's like, oh, I've just been watching YouTube, and you're like,
Wow.
Quick learners, right? So,
yeah, like,
given that, so what do you think is maybe the most funniest or most unexpected moment you've had in a class?
I mean, I think we've had it both ways. Like you get to see these kids come together. A couple of years ago, like I always take videos of, like, the young ones. They'll kind of navigate to, like, the one that can play the guitar and sing, and they're up there, like, jamming out and having fun and being kids, and you'll see kind of the adults just coming behind and supporting that, and that's been the interesting thing, and the kind of the great moments in this is, like, typically the first 3 or 4 years that we had auction school, it was like we showed up on day one and nobody knew anything, right? Like everybody was at auction school because they wanted to become an auctioneer, and they'd listen to Leroy Van Dyke on the radio and they wanted to become an auctioneer, right? That's everybody's story. I heard Leroy Van Dyke and I wanted to do that. I've heard that more than anything. I know that we probably all have. So, like,
Hmm.
that was kind of the thing. But now what we're seeing is, we last year, like I said, we had 11 of these FFA kids come in that are like, like, states are giving them scholarships to come.
Wow.
Like in Oklahoma, we paid for 5 students to go to auction school last year, and we gave scholarships to do that. We have donors that are just giving and giving and giving, wanting to support these kids. So we have 11 of these kids coming to auction school, and so in our class, it's like, when you go into breakout groups or when you bring them on stage, the adults that came because they heard Leroy Van Dyke on the radio, all of a sudden they're becoming better auctioneers faster because they're listening to good auctioneers get up and do it. Because
Hmm.
typically the first 3 days of auction school are, you're listening to bad auctioneers, like 10, 20, 30. It's like, and you're just like, what in the world? And it's like, so now they're listening to these kids that are getting up there, and I mean, can compete with some of the best in the business, and they're doing it on day one auction school, right? Because they've already been in this FFA deal, and they've been watching YouTube clips of all of these legendary guys. They've been slowing down and listening to these world champions, and listening to them at 1/10 speed on YouTube and imitating what they're saying, and they sound like a world champion auctioneer, and they're 15 years old.
That's unbelievable. So, Justin, tell us, how can we find you? How can people find you, just for our listeners?
If you want to reach out to me, I mean, anyone can. I mean, probably find my phone number online, or just email me, Justin at okauctionschool.com. Give me a shout. Anyway, look us up. If like I said, I do that, and I sell trips and travel to benefit auctioneers, and we run a fundraising business where we help out schools and church groups, small groups that are can't can afford to have gala events, and so we run a business called Auction Travel Group where we do that and supply those things and help people meet their fundraising needs in different ways, as well as having the auction school.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Justin, for being our guest today. Thank you, Casey, for coming along for the ride. That's it for episode number 3, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us on the Auctioneer Podcast. We'll be coming at you again next week with another episode. Thank you.